NGEN-PCs here, I'm William, and we're proud to review the Asterion Classic courtesy of Raijintek. Raijintek is one of the latest case companies to enter the premium case market, and sitting next to me is their Asterion Classic, which is their full tower aluminum gaming case featuring tempered glass side panels. The front, top, and bottom panels feature brushed aluminum, and the front panel has a beautifully polished beveled edge to it. It boasts 8 PCI slots, the ability to hold up to 7 fans with dust filters all around, up to 6 storage drives, and was designed with water cooling in mind. Since we at NGEN-PCs specialize in water cooling, that's going to be the main focus of this review. But before we get into that, let's talk about the specifications of the case itself. For starters, there are 2 color variants of this case, silver or black, both with an MSRP of $200, but they can be readily found for $160, and they include 3 120mm white LED fans. The front and top of the case can support up to 3 120mm fans or 2 140mm fans, while the back can only support a single 120 or 140mm fan. It's important to note that the front fans do not have direct access to fresh air, but rather they just recirculate air that's drawn from the bottom or top of the case, or even rear depending on your configuration. Now the dust filter is only on the top and bottom of the case, so you're probably going to keep the rear as an exhaust. The case is 9 inches wide, 18 1/4 inches long, and 20 1/2 inches tall. Though the case is touted as being aluminum, the motherboard tray and the rear panel are made out of steel, as a simple test with a magnet shows. The case weighs 23 pounds by itself, though a lot of that weight comes from the 2 tempered glass side panels. The tempered glass side panels float on rubber grommets to isolate them from vibrations and are held in place with 4 thumb screws. Because these panels are flush mount to the top, bottom, and front of the case, the only real place to get behind it is in the rear, making removal kind of difficult. The best way we found is to simply place your hand down below and kind of catch it when you break it free. Both these panels are smoked and are extremely dark, and the only way to really see inside is if you have LED lighting in the case and you're in a room where all the lights are off. The front I/O features 4 USB 3.0 ports and your typical HD audio connections. In standard fare, there are 2 USB 3.0 ports per single USB 3.0 header on the motherboard, meaning that this case has 2 of them. If you don't have any USB 3.0 headers on your motherboard or don't have 2 of them, thankfully Raijintek includes built-in USB 2.0 header adapters. Now unfortunately, the I/O is built on a really ugly green and tan PCB, and while normally this wouldn't be an issue, it's not covered, and it's really unsightly in the black case. A simple, cheap black plastic cover would be a really welcome addition. On a positive note though, the cables are extremely long and have no problem being cleanly routed or reaching anywhere on our EATX motherboard. As stated before, this case can support up to 6 total drives. All 6 can be 2 1/2 inch drives, or you can have up to 3 3 1/2 inch drives alongside 3 additional 2 1/2 inch drives. At the bottom of the case is a removable hard drive cage that has 2 removable trays, each of which can be either 2 1/2 inch or 3 1/2 inch, and there's some really plush rubber grommets if you choose to install a 3 1/2 inch drive. On top of the PSU shroud, you can install either 2 2 1/2 inch drives or a single 2 1/2 alongside a single 3 1/2 inch drive. And then lastly, on the back of the case, there are 2 points to mount more 2 1/2 inch drives, all of which feature rubber grommets. The power supply sits at the bottom of the case and has its own dedicated vent with a dust filter. The case can accommodate all your standard ATX PSUs and has up to 9 inches before you hit the hard drive caddy. Remove the hard drive caddy and you can install essentially any length PSU. Lastly, cable routing in this case is a breeze. The motherboard tray actually floats in the middle, meaning that it doesn't extend fully to the top nor bottom of the case, meaning you can route your cables anywhere above or below that you need. There are plenty of zip tie mounting points in the back, and there are even 4 well-placed rubber grommets allowing you to get your cables where you need them. There are even a plethora of cutouts below the motherboard allowing you to route your I/O cables through. There's even a cutout on the back to help you mount your CPU coolers too, and speaking of which, it can accommodate CPU coolers up to 180mm in height. So how's building in the Asterion Classic? Well, this is kind of where a line's drawn. For those with air-cooled builds and all-in-one loops, it's really straightforward. It's a large case and has plenty of cable routing room. The fans up front are on a removable tray, and even the top is removable to help you install those fans there. The only real annoyance is the fact that the dust filters on the bottom are bolted on versus utilizing some easy slide-out mechanism for simple cleaning. And these filters block access to some screws you might need, like if you to remove the hard drive tray. Enthusiast custom water cooling is where things get a little trickier. The case is said to be designed with water cooling in mind because it can support up to two 360mm radiators or two 280mm radiators in the front or top, and it can even include a 120 or 140 radiator in the back. But if you aren't one that's willing to modify your case, essentially all radiators are limited to a mere 25mm in thickness. Using our 40mm EK radiator and a single 25mm fan, it was already resting on top of the motherboard if you choose to install it up top. If you install it up front, you're immediately running into clearance issues with the PSU shroud. Then there's a matter of where you're going to install the pumps. For a full-size tower case, you immediately run into space issues, especially with the radiator up front and on top. This is complicated by the fact that the 360mm radiators can only be installed in one direction, the front one with the inlets up top and the top one with the inlets up front. This is definitely a build you're going to want to use hardline tubing for to prevent your tubes from running all over the place. So you'll quickly find that you're most likely going to have to mount the pump lower on the front radiator or on the motherboard tray. If you mount it to the motherboard tray, it's going to require drilling holes, but regardless, you're going to start running into clearance issues with a long graphics card. With our Strix GTX 1080 Ti, it already extends past our pump when mounted on a 40mm radiator. Mounting the pump on the bottom of the case starts to make more sense, but you'll have to either ditch the PSU shroud or cut it shorter, and more than likely have to remove the hard drive cage. So for enthusiast level water cooling, the case quickly becomes a tight squeeze and a hard sell, especially with multiple graphics cards. If you were wanting an easy custom water loop in this case, you'd probably have to stick to a single GPU and mount a slim 360mm radiator up top, which would allow you to mount your pump somewhere on the front fans or even on top of the bottom PSU shroud. So what are our thoughts on the Asterion Classic? Do we even recommend it? Well, we actually think it's a little bit of both situational and even skill level dependent. The case has a very clean aesthetic and a great build quality to it, but you pay for those premium materials. On both sides of things, air and water cooled, there are many cases below $160 that offer superior airflow, like in the Cooler Master H500P, or a more accommodating water loop like the Phanteks Enthoo Evolve. But if you like the design and don't mind paying the price, do we think you'll regret buying it? No, not at all, and I think it justifies that price based on the aluminum construction. Our water cooling recommendation is where we hesitate. For those with all-in-one loops, go for it. For those wanting a custom water loop who are beginners and don't want to modify their case, we probably recommend that you look elsewhere, seeing as there are other options on the market that would be easier to learn on. For enthusiasts that don't mind modifying their case, the modifications required are actually really simple. They would just be mounting holes and probably cutting the PSU shorter. If you'd like to have dual 360mm radiators, we would recommend that you have skills in both planning the water loop and in hardline tubing. Now, while this may not be the friendliest water cooling case on the market, we do think that all that effort will bring something equally beautiful and something that you'd be proud to show off. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If not, a thumbs down, and leave us some constructive criticism so we know what to improve on. From us at NGEN-PCs, I'm William. Thanks for watching.